Assalamu alaikum, welcome to Debate Night with me, your host Mohammed Shafiq, live from our studios in Blackburn. Over the next 2 hours, we talk about Channel 4's a recent documentary titled Islam, the Untold Story. Tom Holland, the producer and presenter of that program, made several suggestions about Islamic history during the time of the Prophet and the 60 years after the time of the Prophet. According to a number of senior Muslim scholars, these ludicrous suggestions made by Tom Holland in his documentary are not stacked up by historic evidence from Islam. Now, we want to look at this today in a bit more detail, and we want to provide Tom Holland, who I know is watching, with some answers about his documentary and what does Islam say and what does the ulama of Islam say about all those issues he raised in his subject on Channel 4. I have a statement from Channel 4 issued tonight to Ummah Channel, which we'll read throughout the show. We'll be taking your live calls on 01254 277 370. Twitter, if you're on Twitter, it's mshafiq UK. And if you're on Facebook, there's the official Ummah Channel page on which we will read some of your comments and your messages about that documentary. I'm joined in the studio by two guests. I'm joined firstly by Majid Iqbal, who's one of the UK's leading Muslim bloggers. Assalamu alaikum, Majid.
Wa alaikum salam, Shafiq.
We'll also be joined by Professor Mufti Mustafa Baig Qadri. He will be with us very shortly, and inshallah, it's a very opportune time for us to look in a bit more detail about these issues. Channel 4 documentary was broadcast last week. It was about Islam, the Untold Story. It tried to look at the history of Islam after the time of the Prophet, and it called into question some of the basic principles that our faith is built on, the foundation of our faith. And we want to find out what were those points that was raised in his documentary and what are the answers from the Muslim community here in the UK. So wherever you are in the world, a very warm welcome. I hope you enjoyed tonight's programme, and more than that, we want to take your calls. It's very important. If you watched the programme, do you agree with it? Do you disagree with it? What are your thoughts? No matter what your thoughts, it's an open platform tonight, 01254 277 370. It's an open platform every night. That's what makes Ummah Channel unique amongst all the Muslim channels here in the UK, is we provide you with a platform so you can air your views and thoughts about contemporary issues faced by Muslims and wider society. So very warm welcome. Majid, you watched the programme like everybody else. What's your initial opening comments?
Yeah, like everybody else, I got a text saying there's a programme on tonight, please watch. So I did, like we try to do with all programmes.
And we all thought it was going to be a positive piece, didn't we?
That's right, yeah. The Untold Story, I thought maybe they're going to describe Islam in a positive way and unearth aspects of Islam and Sharia and Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, which the British public maybe were not aware of from before. So yeah, with the same approach, I came across this program, and within the first 10 minutes, you can see what the agenda of the program was. It was clearly not to kind of like present Islam in a manner in which it should be presented in, but rather it was there questioning the creed, the origin, even the existence of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, whether he even existed in a particular time in a particular location, questioning how Islam came about. Did the Arab Empire create Islam, or did Islam come before? There was many pot shots taken at Islamic history.
Okay, let's get through some of them. Let me just give you Channel 4's statement that was issued to Ummah Channel tonight. We asked Channel 4, because we were presenting the programme, to see whether Tom Holland himself or anybody from Channel 4 would be available to come on to Ummah Channel and discuss these issues. Channel 4 says there was nobody available to come on. However, they have issued a statement to us tonight which says the programme was a carefully considered and scrupulously researched documentary which examines the historical context in which Islam emerged. Excuse me, not a critique of Islamic faith. The origins of Islam are a legitimate subject of academic inquiry, and this history film is wholly in keeping with the other series and programs on Channel 4 where the historical context of world religions has been examined, such as the Bible, a history, an exploration of the tensions that inevitably arise when historical method is applied to the articles of faith, which was central to this film. The program ensured that it gave a voice to Muslim belief. Sayyid Hussein Nasser, one of the world's leading Muslim thinkers, appeared within the film as a penetrating critic of what he sees as the arrogance and blindness of the Western tradition of skeptical historical inquiry. This history program was commissioned as part of Channel 4's remit to support and stimulate well-informed debate on a wide range of issues, including by providing access to information and views from around the world and by challenging established views. It goes on, Mohammed, please also note that there have been a number of inaccuracies in the reporting of the program. Two things are key. The film does, in fact, acknowledge a reference to Mecca in the Holy Quran, and whilst Tom Holland expressed surprise at the lack of Muslim testimony from the 7th century, he did examine Jewish and Christian evidence from that period. That's the Channel 4 statement. I will give it later on in the show as well for viewers who may be joining us a bit later. Your reaction?
Yeah, I mean, the assertion that you can't question Islam, or the fact that, Muslims have become disappointed with the show. We've got no problem with people researching Islam. We've got no problem with people looking into the origins of Islam, looking at our history, looking at the life in the Arab society at the time when we believe Prophet ﷺ, there's facts for this as well, that Prophet ﷺ was alive at that particular time and spread the message of Islam, invited people to the Islamic message. There's no problem with this. The way it's coming across is that, it seems almost Muslims are surprised to get their belief questioned, and I think that's the reverse really. We are perfectly fine in discussion,
in challenging these things,
and we can be challenged as well.
Absolutely. So Islam is not.
So long as it's something which is factual, it's something which is evidence based, and not fantasizing that this didn't happen, therefore this didn't happen, therefore this person didn't even exist.
Okay, the lines are open, so if you do want to join us, 01254 277 370. If you're calling us internationally, 0044 1254 277 370. The cost of a local call, in most cases, it's free. Ummah Channel does not charge premium rates as some other channels may do. Jamaluddin is in London. Assalamu alaikum, Jamaluddin.
Alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Unfortunately, I couldn't watch that program. I didn't know that. But I'm listening to your conversation, and I have some idea what that program was about. So I did watch I do watch this kind of program. You might have remember, there was a program about Jesus, Hazrat Isa alayhi salam, in these channels. And in the end, they also question whether there was a Jesus or this is all stories. So these people are, they do question, and it's a very good thing, If it's a controversial, it makes no difference, because we are supposed to explain to them, and this they give us opportunity to give them explanations and make them understand what we are, And if we can't able to explain ourselves, that is our problem, not their problem. They have a question, doesn't matter, make no difference. I think we're supposed to be very thankful for that too, It is controversial, so what? We are living in an open society where people can ask you a question about your religion, about your origin, where you come from, what your thought, Now even they are thinking, what you are thinking about, about this country. But one thing, keep in your mind, which is, look, what happened in 1947. They've been pushed off from that part of the world, and they lost the rules and all that. But now we are here. Now they want to change our mind, because we are living in this society, and they want us to live the way they want us to live, not the way we want us to live, And I think, this kind of program comes, but they give us actually wonderful understanding to understand ourselves and our Deen Islam, and especially the Quran and Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam. I watch Ummah Channel and other channel where they are providing all kind of information about Islam and Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the Quran and the Sahabas and everything. And it's a very good program, and I appreciate you do that. And thank you very, very much. I don't know whether I contribute something or not, but you know, this is the way I see this program, not negative way. I see it always positive way. Thank you very much. Jazakallah. Asalul jaza. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi
Wa alaikum salam
wa
rahmatullah. Thank you so much, Jamaluddin. Obviously, there's quite a few of you who may not have watched the program. So what we want to do is we want to go through issue by issue, if we can, of the program and where we as Muslims disagree with that documentary. Let me be very clear. Ummah Channel and the Muslim community are not immune from criticism, not immune from being challenged. And Ummah Channel scholars, and I think scholars from all strands, or from all firqas, are available to deal with those questions. Sadly, in this documentary, there was only one person who appeared.
That's
there was
right,
4 or 5 people who were criticising and making these ludicrous suggestions, and then you had one guy, you know, a Muslim guy, who didn't really look at, you know, these issues. Okay, let's go to Blackburn and talk to Ismail. Assalamu alaikum, Ismail.
Wa alaikum salam.
Yes, brother, what would you like to say?
I've just switched on my channel on now, just in the middle of it. I don't know what I've missed out on. This documentary, what was shown, basically, some of it say it wasn't truth. We don't know if this guy who put this documentary on, did he do enough research?
Yeah, he didn't do enough research, did he say?
Sorry, say again.
Did you say he didn't do enough research?
He did or he didn't?
No, I'm asking you, do you think he didn't?
Well, I don't think he did. To what I watched, I don't know what the views are saying.
Do you think he did enough research?
No, I don't think he did enough research. And I think it's the point which you made just earlier on about getting a balanced show, getting a balanced presentation on whatever facts that he wanted to find. You know, to have a program on Islam and hardly have any guests on there or hardly have any commentators on there who are from a Muslim background and who can discuss his concerns. You know, if he believes that oral narration through which a lot of our history has been transmitted, our literature, the Quran has been transmitted in a similar way. If he believes that this is questionable, then surely we can have this discussion. There's not a problem there. So I think that's where he actually went wrong fundamentally. And to tell you the truth, I think there's a lot of intellectual dishonesty there. Like with a lot of people in the past, we refer to them as Orientalists, who deliberately question Islam in a way to cast doubts in the minds of Muslims. They wanted to weaken the thinking of Muslims related to their deen. They wanted to weaken the link between the actions and the Islamic Aqidah. So there's nothing new.
Nothing new. Thank you very much for your call, brother.
No, just one more question, brother.
Yeah, go ahead.
I mean, there were so many viewers watched it. I think was it Channel 4 put it on? I don't know what channel was it.
It was Channel 4, yes.
Sorry?
It was Channel 4, yes.
Yeah, Channel 4. I mean, amount of views actually quite were angry, and they just said, look, why did they show it without any research? Has anyone else put this forward to my channel as well?
Yeah, well, Channel 4 have said, and as I said, I read this.
I apologise, I don't know.
No, I did read a statement out earlier on, but Channel 4 did say it had been, it was a carefully considered and scrupulously researched documentary. Okay, thank you very much, brother.
In fact, we would question even John Holland as a person in terms of what are his credentials.
Holland, yeah.
Tom Holland. What are his credentials in terms of when it comes to researching and understanding history? To tell you the truth, most of the books that he's written are on other topics and hardly are on. I think it's a handful that he's written which are on history. So this in itself casts a lot of doubt in terms of his own ability, credentials to research a vast topic and such an important topic to over 1/6 of the, of the world population, which is dear to them, which is Islam. This person really didn't do justice to the topic.
Okay, we've got quite a few comments on Twitter as well. I want to get through some of them. Mr. HQM says, it's a secular approach to examine history. They don't know any better. Should we really fuss? True, just one representation. They should have also included Professor Hugh Kennedy from the SOAS. He's a brilliant historian. Okay, let's go to London, Mohammed. But it's very fast paced and there's a lot of calls waiting. So if you keep your comments brief and to the point, then we'll get through as many as we possibly can. 01254 277 370. Let's go to London and talk to Muhammad Iqbal. Assalamu alaikum, brother.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah. Two quick comments, one related to Tom Holland's credentials and one related to his methodological flaws. Tom Holland is a writer, he's not a historian, he doesn't know Arabic, he's never studied, academically speaking, the Near East and Islamic studies. So what he did was to rely upon other academics. Now, one of your, person just emailed said, you should have got Hugh Kennedy from SOAS. Now, what he did was this, Tom Holland, he basically relied upon the works of Patricia Crone, Michael Cook, John Wansborough, Gerard Hortings. All of these guys were academics in the 80s at SOAS. Many of them moved on to America, and they wrote a number of works, such as Hagerism, works such as Quranic studies, works about Makkah, and they proliferated theories such as these. So what Tom Holland has actually done, he's actually taken their theories and he's compiled this book. Now, in terms of the methodological flaws, what he has, and I've actually studied ourselves under Gerard Hortings, who is from this particular school of thought, and what they actually do is this, they actually look at history, and their method is not necessarily a true reflection of a historical method, because first and foremost, they'll have assumptions such as the Islamic oral tradition is false, the Islamic hadith tradition is false, and they'll say, okay, we need coins, or coinage, or we need some sort of papyri, or some sort of manuscripts. Now, the question would arise, is the Muslim civilization at that time, did they have coinage? Would they put the Prophet's face on a coin? Is that what you would find? Would you find papyrus with the Prophet's face on there, or his name on there? Can you see what kind of methodology are we using? And this has not been asked. People are going into the issue of, did Makkah exist or did Bakr exist? But they're not asking this guy's methodology. What was his methodology? And the methodology of these revisionists, and this is the revision school of thought, you can look up in your internet, Crone, Cook, they believe whereby the Muslim tradition can be rejected. I'll give an example of Crona, who was a lady that was heavily on this documentary. She basically, alongside Michael Cook, wrote a book called Hagerism, and in that book, she started with the methodological premise that all the Islamic tradition is false. So she goes, we can't even come out of the history of Islam from the Muslims, because the Muslims will lie to you about their history. So what we shall do is we will study the history of Islam through non-Muslim sources, Christians, Jews, and so on and so forth. What kind of history are you going to get? Really, think about it. What kind of history are you going to get? So this school of thought is a minority school of thought in Western academia. So what he's done is this. He's taken a minority thought or minority school of thought in Western academia and presented it as a majority and sensible view. It's like me going and representing the Holocaust from David Irvine's views and saying the Holocaust never took place. Only 1 or 2 people got killed. I would be castigated. I would be told that I am ignorant, that I'm not applying the methods of history properly. But this is what he's done. He's taken a minority view in Western academia, right? And he's basically tried to show that this is the proper view. No one's asking about his methodologies, assumptions, right? Again, all fussed by all the points that he's raised. But where did he get these points from? That's the question. So our ulama, and I forget our ulama, I think we need Muslim academics such as T.J. Winter. We need our ulama who are in Western academia who appreciate and who have studied these kind of questions in the university. I've studied these issues, so I know a little bit about them. But there are other academics who have studied and can obviously go for the methodology issues rather than getting bogged down by his specific claims.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mohammed Iqbal from London. We want to get into those real issues. What were the issues in that documentary that we as Muslims disagree with? And what was their assertion? What was Tom Holland and Channel 4's assertion in the documentary? And what's the Islamic response? Inshallah, very shortly, Professor Mufti Mustafa Baig from Manchester University. He's a lecturer and professor at Manchester University. He will be here and he'll hopefully shed some light about these issues and what the Islamic response is. We're taking your live calls on 01254 277 370. There is a point, because some of these contributors, they've got a bit of a history, haven't they?
Yeah, definitely. I think one of the points which I agree with the brother is the way in which they approach this documentary. That was quite important for them to address.
Very important to address. Let's go to Preston and talk to Yaqub Bhai. Assalamu alaikum, Yaqub.
Welcome, Brother Safiq.
How are you, sir?
Yeah, I found 3 issues in that documentary. Thanks to one of my colleague English guy told me to, can you go home and watch this documentary, and I watched it. Well, I found one issue is what they said in the beginning, the Islam found out by the empire. When Muslim fight with the Roman Empire or whatever, that's how become the Islam. So Islam given by the empire, not the prophet. And another thing what he says, the God is spoken to the Arab. So he didn't mention it. God spoke to the Prophet Muhammad, But he made it like a tone. Look at the word color, desert people, Arab. They Badrun kind of people, and God directly spoke to them, not to the Prophet Muhammad. And another third thing I found out, this land was promised by God to the Jews, now taken over by the Arabs. There's three things I find were very offensive in that program, right? This land belonged to the Jew, now Arab took over in this empire. So empire give to the Islam, not given by the Prophet Muhammad. And then there isn't any evidence before the 7th century about the Islam. It's after the 7th century, one of the guy called Abdullah Zubaydah, right, in 600, he found some kind of a corn, and this is Islam, beginning this issue thing happened. So
because
there wasn't history before it.
I think that was a very major claim, wasn't it? That there's no historical evidence in the 7th century.
That's what was it.
On the origins of Islam.
Exactly, that was the attack. That was the offensive to what is.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much for your call, Brother Yaqub there in Preston. I do apologise to Brother Majid if I'm having to constantly interrupt him, but callers are coming thick and fast. So, sorry, you were saying?
Yes, so the brother, he referred to the methodology of these historians. Rather than going into the intricate details, obviously we'll do that just for the sake of our viewers in terms of what is the kind of Islamic position and what was mentioned. But that's very, very important. How did these people, number one, let's question their credentials. So you mentioned one of the commentators, she was called Patricia Crone. So she's written a book called The Meccan Trade and the Rise of Islam. In this book, she makes a lot of assertions quite similar to the one which Holland makes in his own documentary, including the one about the location of Makkah, the denial that even Hajj was a place, Hajj used to take place in Makkah itself. She says, no, it used to be some other place. So some of them are really factually incorrect, passing herself off as somebody who is fine with the Arabic language, but there's been books written rebutting some of her work. There's a book written.
Okay. We'll explore this in a bit more detail. Let's just take one more call. Anmol is in Dundee. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam.
Brother, can you just switch your TV volume off for me, please?
Yeah.
Switch your volume off, please, then we can talk.
Yeah, sure. 1 second. Yeah.
Okay, is it off now?
Yeah, it's off, yeah.
Yes, brother, what would you like to say?
Yeah, basically, I was watching... yeah, I would like to say, now, the person responsible for this, how are they going to be held accountable? Or who in Channel 4 is willing to take responsibility for what's happened?
Okay, I think your TV volume is still on. You need to take it off, brother. I can't speak to you if I've got your volume on.
Yeah, I've switched it off now, sorry.
Okay. You were saying about responsibility at Channel 4?
Yes, because it's not the first time they've gone against and done something like this against Islam. So my question is, how long will this keep going, or who is responsible? How do we tackle this problem? Or who do we address this to?
Well, there's been over 1,200, thank you very much for your call, Amal, there from Dundee. Well, there's been 1,200 complaints to Ofcom and also a number of complaints to Channel 4. Ofcom are investigating the circumstances of the documentary and are not in a position at this stage to comment. They have promised us once they have a decision, they will let Ummah Channel know. It's time for a short break. When we come back, we'll explore this in more detail, and we'll also talk to Maulana Mufti Mustafa Baig Qadri, who's a professor at Manchester University, about these allegations and what the Islamic response is. Join us after the break. Assalamu alaikum, welcome back to Debate Night with me, your host Mohammed Shafiq, live from our studios in Blackburn. Tonight we're discussing the Channel 4 documentary last week called Islam, the Untold Story. The presenter and producer of that programme, Tom Holland, made several suggestions and questionable remarks about Islam and its history. And so tonight we want to look at that programme. We want to take step by step what he's been saying and what the Islamic response is. I'm also pleased to be joined, obviously we've got Majid Iqbal, UK's leading Muslim blogger here, and we've also got Mufti Mustafa Baig Qadri, who's a professor and lecturer at Manchester University. Mufti Sahib, assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam.
Welcome to the show. Thank you so much. I know you're very, very busy, so I'm very grateful that you've taken the time out to come.
Jazakallah, thank you very much, Shafiq.
You've seen the documentary as well. What was your initial reaction?
Well, I was quite astounded in terms of what I saw, mainly from an academic perspective. I must first confess that I only ended up watching the documentary today quite late. But from what I gathered was that most of the background material that's been used for the documentary are rejected and discredited Western theories regarding Islamic history. The problem with it is that not only from an Islamic perspective, but also from a Western academic perspective, these theories have been universally discredited, to the point that Patricia Croner, a person you saw featuring on that program, herself, along with Michael Cook, have now called their findings in books such as Hagarism as a tentative experiment. So they have distanced themselves from the findings of that book. I mean, this is not clear in the text itself when they wrote the book Hagarism. But since it's been published and because of the widespread condemnation by the academic community worldwide, they themselves distanced themselves from the theories mentioned in that book. So what I was so surprised about is, why was Patricia Croner invited on this program? Why did Channel 4 still entertain these particular theories? And what was more shocking was that Patricia Croner was repeating some of the same things that she said that she's distanced herself from. So from an academic perspective, I was quite surprised that these theories were still being flagged up, even though they've been rejected by the academic community. I've got lots of quotes to present on that, inshallah. As the program goes on, we'll try to present some of them for you.
I'm very eager, because I know how fast the show goes, to make sure that we get through all the points, because we know that certain people are watching from Channel 4, and they're also watching. Tom Holland, the producer of that program, is watching as well. So we want to really give an answer from Islam and the Muslim community to those points. Let's take the first point, Mufti Sahib. The first point is the claim that there is no historical evidence in the 7th century on the origins of Islam.
See, that's an incredible point to make on national television. The point is, first of all, that we must address is, what do you call historical evidence? What do you class as historical evidence? Now, for the theory which forms the backbone of this particular program, for them, historical evidence excludes all of Islamic history. So any history that is related to Islam, to Muslim sources, they reject that flat out. So our first contention with the program makers and with Tom Holland is, what do you call historical evidence? For us, Islamic sources, Islamic history is proper evidence, just like for Jewish history, Jewish sources are proper evidence. For Christian history, Christian sources are proper evidence. Now, our main issue with this program is not the fact that you can use non-Islamic sources to try to construct Islamic history, but the fact is that you have ignored completely, rejected in their entirety all Islamic sources and said we can only use non-Islamic sources. On this basis is why the academic community, I mean, eminent historians such as Professor Sargent, who spent a very long time at Cambridge University, he actually says regarding Hagarism, which is the underlying theory behind the book, says, Hagarism is not only bitterly anti-Islamic in tone, but anti-Arabian. Its superficial fancies are so ridiculous that at first one wonders if it's just a lead pull or pure spoof. The point being that why have you made this particular bias and prejudice where you have said for Islamic history alone that we are not going to take any Islamic sources whatsoever? So first of all, when it comes to Islamic sources, all of us on the panel here and all of you at home are in no dispute regarding the Quran, the Hadith, the Sunnah, the early Seerah and the Tariq, that these are all form the corpus of Islamic history and tell us important information about Islamic history if we can authenticate the narrations. And I'll come on to authentication later on. But in terms of Western, this Western approach, which is not really, I shouldn't call it a Western approach actually, this approach by these few academics that have been rejected, even on that basis we have inscriptions on, for example, in rocks and in buildings in Saudi Arabia, and we have Christian sources as early as 635. All of these sources mention the Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wa alihi wasallam, the religion of Islam, the fact that there was a community of Arabs embracing the religion, these are the tenets of their faith, this is how they pray and so forth. So from both an Islamic and Western perspective, we can easily prove the history of Islam.
Okay, Imran is in London. Assalamu alaikum, Imran.
Wa alaikum salam. Thank you very much, guys. Just wanted to congratulate you for this important response or a program that you're doing. And I think all the Muslim channels should be doing this as their first priority. I'm sure all of you guys would appreciate that the program has reached millions, if not thousands, at least, a couple of million of viewers. And, me as a person from the Muslim community, as the normal Muslim community, which is not, full of scholars, when we're talking about everyday working life or going to universities or colleges, where most of the brothers don't have enough intellectual knowledge to be able to understand what they're trying to show on the channel. And I just wanted to say to you that a lot of Muslims, when I spoke to them the following day, after watching the program when I went back to work, a lot of them actually had questions in their own mind. And, they were like, well, there was a scholar there, Sayyid Hussein Nasser, and he didn't have answers, and it was very cleverly edited, the whole program. And my main message for you guys, and I'm going to urge you guys to even explore that, is we've got to learn and realize what the actual agenda is. We are talking about the program, we're talking about the response, but we have to go one step further and explore why such an attempt was made, rather than just giving a response on what the reality is. But what we have to explore is why certain programs are made. And there's no doubt it was clearly unbiased. It was clearly unresearched. Clearly they were giving more time for that Bedouin guy, from the desert, to speak about Islam, who was not a scholar.
Okay, thank you very much. Imran, sorry cutting you off, because we've got hundreds of calls waiting and I want to get through them as many as possible. I don't want to finish the show at 12 o'clock and find out we haven't covered every aspect. So I'd ask you, if you are ringing in, to keep your comments brief, so that we can get through that. I mean, you referred to, there's also a very excellent piece done by Hamza Zotis, who is a well-known Muslim activist, spokesman. He travels around and really debates Christians, atheists across the country. And he's done a very good piece for the IEAR. I did invite him to come on too much, and he wasn't available to come on, but he's agreed that we can use his statement as a basis to stimulate debate. And I know you've read that statement as well, Mufti Saab, so but you'll also be able to add your knowledge to it as well. There is that assertion that there was no, let's work on his agenda. Tom Holland says there was no Christian evidence from the 7th century on the origins of Islam. That's a big point, Majid, that was made in the program. That, yes, Muslims are going to say, that there is historical evidence from the Quran and the Sunnah to prove Islam. Yeah. But there is nothing backing that up, say, by Christians or Jews who lived at the time of the Prophet and the aftermath.
The really odd point about what he made in that statement and that assertion was that there's no evidence. Surprisingly, he's written a book. I've got to get the title of the book somewhere in front of me here. But in the book, he actually mentions and quotes the Mithaq Medina, the Constitution of Medina of Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, where the world's first constitution was drafted out, in which the rights of Jews and Christians are mentioned specifically. So it's actually in his book, he's actually confirming that there was something called a constitution written by somebody called Muhammad, who lived in a particular place in a particular location and had to deal with different communities, and this is the this draft constitution which he pushed out, so that people can understand what their rights and responsibilities and roles are living under a state and government which is governed by Islam. So in his book he makes his assertion, but in the documentary he starts referring to, well, there's no historic evidence for a place called Makkah, there's no historic evidence for the Prophet ﷺ being in Makkah or being in this particular vicinity. It was really surprising.
Mufti Sahib, okay, Majid Khan is from London. Assalamu alaikum, Majid.
Walaikum salam.
Yes, brother.
Brother, I'm just watching your program. I last seen your documentary. Basically, I'm a journalist and documentarian. And I'm decided to make a documentary on that, argue the argument. Because that person, he's a good writer, but he completely refused the actual facts of Islam, the actual history of Islam, by systematical way with their own ignorance. He completely manipulated the hadith evenly. The hadith, he used the hadith in a very wrong way. If it's the hadith of the small children, the person who buried his own child. He just projected half of this. I want to project all of this, but I need the help of the Mufti because I'm not a scholar. Because he divided the documentary between believers and scholars. He said believers believe on that history, but scholars don't believe on the history. The Mufti Sahib is a scholar now, but I am asking from Mufti Sahib, how could you help us to make a documentary on that? Could you search them? Because I want to counter all these arguments.
Okay, well, one of the things that Ummah Channel will be doing over the next few weeks is we'll be bringing you a 3-part series which will be titled in English, Islam the Told Story, where Islamic scholars will come here on Ummah Channel and they will tell you what the told story is of Islam history, not by hearsay, but by evidence, Islamic evidence, but also wider evidence from wider society at the time. So inshallah, keep watching Ummah Channel. We'll bring you that series hopefully in the next few weeks. Jazakallah, thank you so much for your call there, brother Majid in London. Mufti Sahib, there is that point, isn't there, that at the time of the 7th century, as they're referring to, he says there is no evidence. Yet in the IEAR statement and in the research that you've done as an academic, there is evidence, isn't there?
Well, the first thing I'd like to say on that point is, why are we in need, first of all, of Christian evidence only? Why are only Christian sources admissible in this and Islamic sources are not? I mean, this is blatant racism, bias and prejudice, really. The fact of the matter is that there is Christian evidence available. There's lots of Christian evidence available, and some of the research that's being going on the internet, which is responding point by point to the program. I'm not exactly aware who's doing what research out there, but for example, one of the inscriptions, you can actually find a picture of the inscription as well online, and some of these sources is the Doctrina Jacobite, and that's written in 635, just 2 to 3 years after the passing of the Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, in which they mention.
That source again, sorry?
It's the Doctrina Jacobite, and that's written in 635. And in that you can clearly see where in this document it talks about the Prophet Muhammad being a prophet among the Arabs and so on so. And after this, there's systematic evidence from Christian sources in 637, in 660, and so on. There's lots of information from sources outside of the Islamic corpus of literature. But I think the fundamental point is that Islamic history is in no desperate need to prove its history from Christian sources when we can verifiably, using the same historical methods of mass transmission of multiple sources and see, another thing is that Islamic history is not only linear in projection, you see. We don't have a system where one person is narrating to another, then one person is narrating to the other in chronological fashion only. It's actually much more complex and complicated than that, in that what history is vertical as well as horizontal, you see. So we have different and multiple chains of transmission through which Islamic history has been recorded. It's been written down very early on, but then so many sources from different geographical parts of the Islamic world have narrated Islamic historical events that it's impossible for them all to collude on this massive, huge lie that there was a person called the Prophet Muhammad lived in Mecca in this year, and the early believers were in Mecca and they migrated to Medina. It's actually impossible using very, very basic historical principles and historiography that this whole issue would be concocted by a small group of believers. And I'll come on to some quotes about that later on in the program.
Okay. I mean, you've got that statement from the IEAR, and it also refers to Serbius, the Bishop of Bagra, Tunis. He wrote something in 66 CE. You got that in front of you?
He wrote down, he said, at the time, a certain man from along those same sons of Ishmael, whose name was Muhammad.
You're quoting here, aren't you, brother?
Yeah, I'm quoting here. I, Muhammad, a merchant, as if by God's command appeared to them as a preacher and the path informed of truth. He taught them to recognize the God of Abraham, especially because he was learned and informed in the history of Moses. So even here we've got an evidence here from a person who's from a different background, from a different religious persuasion, confirming and giving his evidence and giving us historical evidence as well that there was somebody by the name of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam who did exist at a particular time in a particular area, a particular location, and what his message was. You know, what did he come to? He talks over here that he was informed in the history of Moses. He talked about unity in religion, abandoning their vain cults. They turned to the living God who had appeared to their father Abraham. So Muhammad, Prophet legislated for them not to carry on, not to drink wine, not to speak falsely, and not to engage in fornication. So he's actually describing the Sharia in a nutshell there, in terms of what some of the rules and regulations were, which were transmitted to people in that particular era.
Because Tom Holland, this Mufti Sahib, he didn't really refer to. There's quite some authoritative statements there, you know, that Majid just read out, that you also referred to. There's quite a lot of important non-Muslim testimony in the aftermath that backs up the Islamic history and Islamic testament, isn't there?
I mean, of course. I mean, the bias what was in the program, I mean, against Islam is clearly visible, and he wasn't expressing the same types of sentiments towards other religions. It seemed like an anti-Islamic rhetoric throughout, a polemic, if you like. And what you can see in that program, again, is this idea that we will not trust. I mean, it's this notion that Muslims aren't trustworthy enough to tell their own history. Basically, that's what he's trying to say, or not reliable enough, or not capable to tell their own history. And this is very classical Orientalism hogwash, if I can call it that, that Muslim people aren't trustworthy enough, or they lack the intelligence to tell their own history. And the whole paradigm of Orientalism, we must fight that. And people think, oh, Orientalism's over now, and we are in, I mean, people do talk about post-colonialism and post-Orientalism. But the very fact is that this paradigm and this mindset among some Western academics is something that really needs to be tackled, that they believe Muslims aren't capable of telling their own histories.
Okay, sorry to interrupt. I'll just take a call. Let's go to Ireland and talk to Zeb Khan. Assalamu alaikum.
Hi, good evening.
Yes, brother, what would you like to say?
Yeah, well, what I'm asking is, it's a good debate, but what I see here is just a one-sided conversation. Wouldn't it have been better if you would have brought somebody from the opposite group to have a proper debate, and they could make their point rather than
we would have, brother, we would have loved that. We invited Tom Holland, the producer and presenter of Channel 4's programme. We also asked for Channel 4 to see if somebody from their production team, of the people who put the documentary together, would be able to come on and talk to us, or even have a telephone interview. Nobody was available to come on. So, we would love to have a debate with these people, but clearly they don't want to debate us. So that's the reason why we've only got a one-sided debate here tonight.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, Brother Zeb Khan there from Ireland.
You see, Shafiq, just to finish off that point regarding Christian sources, I mean, modern Western academic literature is also not Muslim, but virtually all of the Western academic world has rejected the theories that were found in that program, basically universally, regarding Islamic history, and that Islam did not exist, and the Prophet ﷺ was not born in 570, etc. Even their own PhD supervisor, Crook and Cronus, their own PhD supervisor, I mean, we don't agree with his theory, he's got many absurd theories regarding Islam and the Quran, but just to promote, just to quote him, to refute their own theories, I mean, it's staggering, because what they were trying to do in that program was say that Islamic sources are not reliable. Islamic sources are not trustworthy. But look what their own supervisor says, PhD supervisor John Wansbrough. He says, most, if not all, of the sources have been or can be challenged on suspicion of inauthenticity, and that the material is upon occasion misleadingly represented. So it doesn't. The fact of the matter is that it's not Islamic sources that are not authentic or cannot be trusted, but it's the sources that are used in works such as Tom Holland's and Patricia Cronin's, that they are the actual sources, according to Western scholarship, that are not authentic or are spurious or of dubious nature. So it's not something which they can attack Islamic history with, when they are guilty actually of that themselves, you see. So this is an important thing to get out on this program today, that we are in no need to be defensive about our history when we have corroborated our history with proper historical methodology that all of the histories are corroborated with as well, and we'll come on to that shortly.
There's a question from Brother HQ Asim. Brother Asim on Twitter, he says, Tom Holland has suggested that Amir Muawiyah radiallahu ta'ala anhu did not make clear reference to the blessed Prophet when in Sham. Is that true or false?
You see, again, the basis for making that particular claim is using non-Islamic sources only. Using non-Islamic sources only. So they are going off Christian sources, Roman sources, sources from non-Islamic sources in Jerusalem. And that might be the case that in actual Christian sources, non-Muslim sources around Jerusalem, that Hazrat Muawiyah did not make explicit reference to the Holy Prophet ﷺ. But what about the entire body of nature which we have spread out throughout Arabic sources, where he is clearly not only mentioning the Prophet ﷺ, Allah Ta'ala, Islam in those sources, but also his time as a Sahabi, and after that, and the whole war with Hazrat Ali which took place, which is the battle of Siffin, and so on. All of this history that we have, from the time when he was a companion, from the time of his fight against Sayyidina Ali radiallahu ta'ala anhu, and then his time as leader of the Islamic Ummah. In all of these phases, he was clearly a Muslim ruler. And this is documented in all of his khutbahs, all of his speeches, in every action that he did, and in the way that he conducted Islam throughout the empire.
Okay, so that's false.
References to Islam, of course, it's false.
It's false.
All references.
I hope that answers your question, brother Asim. Muhammad Iqbal is back because he's got a question. I hope it's just a question, Muhammad Iqbal.
No, it's a quick comment, a very quick one. The reason I'm giving a comment is because I've studied Gerard Hortings and their methodology, and I just want to give an anecdote from where
Well, you know what, Muhammad Iqbal, you should make the trip up north and
well, invite me and I'll come up north, inshallah.
Drop us
Can I make my comment quickly before I take up too much time?
No, brother, drop us a message. Drop us a message on...
I just want to make my comment. It's very interesting, though. Let me just make it. I asked Gerard Hortings when we asked Stars about the theories of Patricia Crone and Michael Cook and Ripon and Calder, and he said, look, these are interesting things. We don't accept them to be historically, factual and so on and so forth, but they're interesting, very interesting theories and so on and so forth. And this is a problem. Tom Holland and these individuals have taken tentative speculative theories based upon speculative evidence and presumptions and methodological flaws and try to show them as being historical facts. And that's the problem, where these are tentative theories, speculative, and so on and so forth. And we should be very careful in terms of even entertaining them as being factual theories. We should show their speculative nature. Jazakallah khair. Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you very much. And if you drop your number at the studio, brother Muhammad Iqbal, I will ring you and hopefully get you to come up. So I wanted to, I apologize if I'm looking at the laptop quite too often, but a lot of information, because we want to get this right, obviously. You imagine Patricia Crone was, she said in a documentary that we're an oral tradition. I quote, you remember what you want to remember. And that's the reason why she rejected hadith or the sayings of the Sahaba.
Can I just say one very quick point on that, Shafiq, before Majid comes in? Why can the same not be done with the written tradition as well? If you want to write history down, you can also remember what you want to remember and forget what you want to forget and play to your own political, social objectives. So the fact that you're singling out oral tradition for this is logically quite flawed, actually, because you can do the same thing with the written tradition also.
Majid?
Yeah, you got your answer there. But I think it's a point in addition to this is, going back to the point, is the way in which the whole approach to this program, it's based upon this idea that, as the Mufti was mentioning, is that the Islamic traditions need to be completely ignored, and therefore non-Islamic traditions, they need to be accepted. Anybody who studies the Islamic traditions, any independent researcher who studies that, would know that this is one of the only religions which has put so much emphasis on codification, on narration, on the transfer of knowledge, the transfer of ideas, the transfer of discussions that took place. Name as any other religion or any other way of life which could be put on par with Islam when it comes to these traditions.
Exactly. You see, on that point, Shafiq,
Can I just take a call and I'll come back to you, Mustafa. Zara is in Birmingham. Assalamu alaikum, Zara.
Wa alaikum salam.
Welcome, sister. What would you like to say?
It's just a quick one. Basically, I don't need to mention, like so many other people have, what a load of nonsense that documentary was. But what I just wanted to make was that, something, we face so many attacks on our deen, the fact that we're Muslims, that we don't integrate, blah, 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 blah. But I see this as just another attempt to sort of make us doubt the validity of Islam and try and cast doubt in our minds. So I just wanted to say to the Muslims who are listening to this, something, these kind of shows show to us we need to know what we are talking about. We need to be clued up about the deen. If we don't know something or we're unsure, we need to clarify it, we need to be confident and read up on these discussions against Islam and learn these arguments. And also, we need to question these people on their beliefs. Don't let them cast a doubt in our minds, We need to show them the flaws and the inconsistencies in how they live and convince them that Islam is the truth. So that's just what I wanted to say. So
thank you very much, Sister Zara there in Birmingham. Lines are open 01254 277 370. If you're calling us internationally, 0044 1254 277 370.
Yes, I mean, a big part of this program was that we can't rely on Islam's oral tradition. Again, a complete fallacy, because most of the traditions that we have historically that tell us about the ancient world, about the classical world, or even later than that, even much of what we know about modern history, is oral history. And then it's oral history is what is actually written down. It's the logical consequence that before things are written down, they are mentioned, they are talked about, and then they are put to paper. One thing I'll mention here is that what are sources of knowledge from a philosophical point of view? In other words, how do we attain knowledge? I mean, this is quite universal, but I'll give you an Islamic quote from this, from actually Matan al-Aqaid of Imam Nasafi. And right at the very start, he mentions that there are three sources of knowledge of ilm. And one is al-hawasus salima, the second is al-khabrus sadiq, and the third is al-aql. So the first one is your five senses. This is the first way to attain knowledge. The second way to attain knowledge is through reliable reporting. Now, report can be of two forms. One is oral, in other words, verbal, and the other one is written. So that's the second source of knowledge that human beings have. The third source of knowledge that we have is our intellect. So, according to all historical standards, al-khabar al-sadiq, which means a truthful report, either verbal or written, is one of our sources of knowledge. And to reject that, we would really question on what basis do you reject that? They didn't provide a basis for why we reject the oral tradition, apart from that the little point that you made earlier. When it comes to Islamic history, this is something very important I'll make, and it's something what Majid touched upon. He made a good point.
If I take a quick call, and then we can, thank you. Amir is in Leeds. Assalamu alaikum, brother.
Walaikum assalam.
Welcome to the show, brother. What would you like to say?
Thank you. Well, actually, my view is that Tom Holland, the guy that did the program, I got the impression more, actually, that he was lost and he was looking for something. And if you watch the bit where he went to Jerusalem and he went to Masjid al-Aqsa, and you listen to his voice, he sounded a little bit overcome by where he was. And it might very well be that, like many non-Muslims, he's heard Muslims talk about Makkah and the beauty of Makkah and the majesty of Makkah. And maybe they feel that they have to, because they obviously can't get access to Makkah because they're not Muslims, people like him, he feels he has to discredit Makkah as a place, that it never existed, or it didn't exist in the context of where Islam came from. And the idea that because Muhammad ﷺ wasn't patronized through coinage, suggests that he never existed as a Muslim is ridiculous. No prophet has ever been patronized through coinage. Also, the fact that he talks about the caliphs who came originally from Arabia to Jerusalem, not calling themselves Muslims. Well, they didn't come calling themselves Muslims because they were classed as monotheists. They were believers, just like the people who live in Jerusalem. So my view is, I thought he was trying to discredit, really, the idea of Islam and Mecca, because really it's something he and other non-Muslims want to get access to. They want to get access to the place that we've got privilege, we have the privilege to go visit, and I think he's looking for something.
Okay. Thank you very much, brother Amir there. Ji Mufti Sahib, you were saying?
I was about to say, one of the things that they talk about is that we cannot rely on the Islamic oral tradition because Muslims do not do any internal criticism. I mean, that's an absolute absurdity, because one of the things that we are quite proud of in our history and in the way that we know about information about the Prophet ﷺ, about the companions, about the Prophet's family, is through a process of authenticating the reports. Now, in Islam, we have two, as you have with all sorts of knowledge, is that we divide knowledge into two branches. And one is knowledge that is absolutely certain, qat'i, yaqini, and the other knowledge which is uncertain, which is zan. I mean, it's still knowledge, but we're not absolutely certain that that's true. And basically, with these two branches of knowledge that we have, we can then make further subdivisions of knowledge and apply it to different genres within Islam that can tell us a lot of information about Islamic history. Let's take the example of hadith, for example. Again, we can divide it into the two basic branches of certainty and those reports that are not certain. If we have a report that is narrated through a single chain of reporters, for example, that one person reports to another person and the other person narrates to another person, so it's basic linear reporting. This type of report, what will first of all happen is that Muslim scholars will not take the report just based on the report itself, but they will have a look at what the report actually says. Does it fit the laws of logic? Does it fit the language
in which it was said?
Yeah, the environment. Does it fit the language of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam? So they look at the text of the hadith. This is called diraya. And then they will also look at riwayah, the chain of transmission. And each person in the whole chain of transmission will go through a process of authentication, whether that reporter is actually reliable or not. So the remarkable thing that we have in Islam, we'll expand on this more, is not only do we have a vast amount of information about the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ in terms of everything that he did, his character, the way he behaved, the things he ate, the things he drank, the things he avoided, and so on. We also have the means through which we know that information solidly reported as well. So we have huge volumes of book on Asma Rijal, which tell us information about the sources through which we receive information about the Prophet Muhammad. So it's not only the information about the Prophet that we have, we also have extensive information about the people and the sources through which we receive that information. And Muslim scholars throughout history have engaged in a very, let's say, a very strong critical approach in terms of verifying whether the information that we have is authentic or not, through looking at this process through which we receive these reports.
If you are calling, and I know we had a brother Nadeem from Manchester who was waiting, I really find it difficult because it's a pleasure to have Mufti Saab here, and you know we're getting a lot of texts and tweets coming through now, people saying they're finding it really informative what Mufti Saab and Brother Majid is saying, and so I really struggle not wanting you to interrupt them so we can take your call. So if you are put through to the studio, just bear with us. I'm sure once Mufti Saab and Majid have paused, we'll come to that. We also have a response from Tom Holland that I want to go through as well, in which he talks in a bit more detail about his response to the complaints which I and other people in the community raised with him. But let's go to London and talk to Hasnain. Assalamu alaikum, brother.
Wa alaikum assalam. First of all, congratulations on a wonderful program, and mashallah, you two guests are doing a very good job. I'd just like to make a couple of comments. You know, first of all, we shouldn't really mind about the Channel 4 program and Tom Holland, his theory about Islam and so on. Because, you know, it's fine if anybody criticizes our ideas, our ancestors, you know, for centuries. We tolerate academic, you know, if somebody presents evidences or whatever, that's not a problem at all. I think we should take it easy on that front. That at least, you know, he presents his argument, and it's for us to respond, simple as that. So it's not such a big deal. Secondly, I think that there is a lack of consistency in the Western approach to Islam, to understanding Islam. Because it's the interpretive framework that they have is there's a different framework for understanding Islam, and there is a different framework of understanding Judaism, Christianity. For example, look at Thucydides in the classical times. He was an Athenian general. He wrote the history of the Peloponnesian War. But, you know, and he was himself a general in the Athenian army fighting the Spartans. Yet Thucydides' Peloponnesian War, that book, it's like the cornerstone of all the classics departments at all institutes. Yet the same criticism that's leveled against the Islamic oral tradition or the Islamic historical work, we can level at that Thucydides as well. The point I'm trying to make is that he was a partisan author. So are the Muslims. They're writing their own histories and they are partisan. But the thing is that the Western approach should be consistent. That if you accept one set of historical narrative, which has the same problem as the Islamic one, then there's like a contradiction here. Okay. And finally, my dear brothers, I'd like to just say that there was a monk in the 680 Christian era in the Mesopotamia, and this reference I take for Professor Hoyland, who's a dear friend and a teacher of mine. He wrote the book writing the biography of the Prophet Muhammad in his article. He quotes this monk in Mesopotamia in 680 Christian era, and the quote is that the monk says that the Muslims consider Muhammad as their guide and instructor and adhere strictly to his tradition. So in 680, there is Christian source telling us that the Muslims, there were people called Muslims, there was a person called Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and his job was a guide and instructor, and that the Muslims adhere to his tradition. Now, obviously, to adhere to somebody's tradition, you need to have knowledge of it, and you know, in 680 he's writing, long time, 50 years or something like that, Rasulullah alayhi salatu wasalam has passed away. So there was this live tradition which they were adhering to. And finally, I would just like to read 2 lines from Montgomery Watt, who was another Orientalist, a Western scholar, and he's talking about same people as Kroner and Cook, you know, like Tom Holland thesis. And this is what he has to say about the Islamic oral tradition. And he says, I quote here, he says, the Kroner-Cook rejection of the Muslim sources for the early history of Islam thus appears to be contrary to sound historical methodology. This is exactly what Tom Holland does. When one further considers the vast amount of material involved, many thousands of interlocking items, it is incredible that some person or group about the 8th century could have invented all these details and got them universally accepted. It is also incredible that someone at that date should have been so sophisticated as to realize that invented material tends to be wholly consistent, and then to introduce discrepancies and corrections in order to put the 20th century investigators off the scent. Most incredible of all is that no traces have been left of the process of invention. So the problem, the point is that within the Western scholarship, there are 2 camps. There are the skeptics, revisionists, such as the John Wansborough, Kroner, Cook, who are heavily, you know, anti-Islamic. And then other side, you have people like Hoyland and people like Montgomery Watt and so on, who accept Islam, who apply the correct historical methodology, and they also agree to, not of course entirely, but they agree that there was a person called Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, there is the oral tradition, and there is the Quran. I'm sorry I've taken a long time here, but I hope that contributes to your program.
Thank you very much, Shahsab. Thank you. Allah bless you for that. G. Majid, I want to quote to you what Tom Holland has been saying as well. This has been sent to us as well. And I do apologise if I'm looking at the laptop. It's just that most of the information I've got is on the computer. And so I don't want to misquote anybody, and I don't want to get myself into any trouble. Make sure that we do this properly. He says, the origins of Islam are a legitimate subject of historical inquiry, and this film is wholly in keeping with other series and programmes on Channel 4 where the historical context of world religion has been examined, such as the Bible and a history. He says it's important to stress, as we do in the film, that this is an historical endeavour and is not a critique of one of the major religions. It was commissioned as part of Channel 4's remit to support and stimulate well-informed debate on a wide range of issues. As a non-Muslim historian, I tried to examine within a historical framework the rise of a new civilization and empire that arose in the late antique world as the 2 great ancient empires of Rome and Persia were in decline. The themes in the programme have been previously written about extensively by many historians. He again quotes Patricia Crone, who's a professor at Princeton in America, Gerald Hoyton, professor SOAS in London University, and Fred Donner, professor at Chicago, all of whom lent their support to the programme. The themes it explores are currently the focus of intense and escalating academic debate. An accusation, I'm reading this word by word, so bear with me. An accusation made against the film is one of bias, and although I believe that absolute objectivity is a chimera, what was incumbent upon us in making this film was to be upfront about my own ideological background and presumptions, and to acknowledge the very different perspective that Muslim faith provides. If the film was about the origins of Islam, then it was also about the tensions between 2 different worldviews. While the one accepts or rejects the truth of the tradition is ultimately dependent upon the philosophical presumption that one brings to the analysis of the source. There are some substantive points that he goes into that we want to explore as well. I'm realising the time is flying really fast, Majid. Yeah. What would you like to respond to?
Yeah, so right at the beginning of the programme I mentioned quite clearly that as Muslims we don't have any problem with anybody looking into Islam, into the history in terms of our origins, how did it start, and again the facts for this, did somebody by the name of Muhammad receive revelation, how did this Islamic message spread, and even beyond that then what happened after that then. So we've got no problem with people looking at Islam in an honest way. But as I mentioned at the beginning, I think there was a lot of intellectual dishonesty in terms of the way the program was approached, and that is not surprising. I think some of the callers have mentioned this echoed this quite clearly. We've had books written in the past, we've had programs in the past, in the last century or so, books have been written with a view to discredit and not to give any objective understanding of Islam, to any objective research or analysis about the origins of Islam, but purely to weaken the link between the Islamic rules and make them further away from the Islamic Aqidah. So I think one of our callers mentioned that young Muslims feel that they've got no answers. When they watch this type of program, they start raising a lot of questions in their head. Look, this guy is making all these comments over here and we haven't even got a clue about this. Maybe he's got some points.
Yeah, and that's why it's so important that Ummah Channel has put this on for you and our viewers.
And the point that he makes about, that we've had other programs, we've also researched Christianity, we've also researched Judaism, and give them also a critique in a similar way like we're giving this program. I disagree with that. I think a lot of the way Westerners approach the study of Islam is with a mindset of their own religious experiences from...
Well, he actually says that. He says it was... I quoted it earlier, didn't I? He did say that. He said he needs to be upfront about his own ideological background and
That's right, yeah. So it's very important for us to understand that it's not objective, it's not independent, and the fact is it's tarnished with a secular worldview.
And it's not even contemporary in the academic world, because these arguments that were made were tentative kind of experimental arguments that people made. It wasn't about establishing anything, it was about doubting and negating. And most of the academic world...
You say most of the academic... I'm putting words in your mouth, but... these professors and these academics that appeared in the programme don't represent the majority of the academics
well, you see,
in this area?
Some of the things that were... For example, Fred Donner was on the programme.
Yeah.
And Fred Donner himself has a book which is quite opposite to what was said in that programme. It's called Fred Donner's Narrative of Islamic Origins, The Beginnings of Islamic Historical Writing. It's a good book. I mean, don't agree with everything, for example, from a Muslim perspective, what Fred Donner says. But in that particular program, if they got, all of his views regarding what the theories were in that program, then I think some interesting things would have come across. And somebody mentioned about Sayyid Hussein Nasr not having the answers. I think that's not the issue. The issue is that these programs are edited in, quite a nasty way sometimes. And many of the people that participate on them afterwards are in shock that, what I was saying actually to this person in the interview looks very, very different to how it's actually appeared. So that's a big problem as well.
And we've got to be fair to the Muslim scholar who appeared. He obviously has not said anything since the programme was broadcast, and so obviously may not
his first answer when he said, they only had one word where he said no, and they just cut it off straight away, and I was shocked. I thought, just one word and you've cut the rest off.
Yeah. We were talking about Professor, what's his name? Fred Donner?
Yep.
We were talking about Fred Donner, but he makes some suggestions in the programme, where he says that in the Quran, I've lost it. Okay. Sorry about this. Apologies. But he was making points about the historical, the Quran. Was it narrated? Did it come at the Ghar Hira? There were some questions about that. I'm just trying to get it from my laptop.
Basically.
Here is so the quote from Fred Donner. He says, "We have to admit collectively that we simply do not know some very basic things about the Quran. Things so basic that the knowledge of them is usually taken for granted by scholars dealing with other texts. They include such questions as how did the Quran originate? Where did it come from? And when did it first appear? How was it written? And in what kind of language was it written? What form did it take to... I'll read you all these questions. I'm sure you'll be able to respond to them. In what kind of language was it written? What form did it first take? Who constituted its first audience? How was it transmitted from one generation to another, especially in its early years? When, how, and by whom was it codified? And those familiar with the Quran and the scholarship on it will know that to ask even one of these questions immediately plunges us into the realms of grave uncertainty and has the potential to spark intense debate.
You see, some of these claims made about the Quran, first of all, Western academics themselves are in strong disagreement regarding the dating of the Quran. I mean, these are the ones that obviously don't accept the Islamic narrative of events. The first thing I'd like to say on this, as a point to kind of break the argument, is from a logical point of view, is in parts of the program you might have seen that they were using the Quran as the earliest document of Islamic history, and talking about it as this is a document that existed in the time of the Muslims, of the early Muslims, of the companions of the Prophet, and giving examples such as the fact that it doesn't mention Mecca in the Quran, for example. Now, at the same time, what they are doing is they are using the Quran to make certain arguments, like the Quran doesn't talk about Mecca, the Quran doesn't talk about certain things, the Quran don't talk about certain things regarding Muslim practice. But then on the other hand, they're saying that the Quran does not belong to the very early part of Islam, but it came much, much later on. I mean, some Western academic theories have these, such as Wansborough and people like that, say that the Quran, in fact, most parts of Islamic history, they were as a result of back projection, that it was the Mufassirun who actually invented the Quran. I mean, we've got answers to respond to that, that the Islamic exegetes, they actually wrote the Quran Majid, and there was a back projection from the Mufassirun, and then to the later companions, the Tabi'een, then to the companions, etc., etc. It was constructed in this way. But I'll give you one piece of non-Muslim evidence, if you like, if you can call it that. And that is if people are interested, they can have a look at the Sana'a manuscript of the Holy Quran, which is a manuscript that was found. And Western academics did a lot of research on this particular manuscript of the Quran. It was found in 1972. And with radiocarbon dating, they placed the year of that particular Quran Majid at around 657. Around 657. So that's just after about 20, 30 years after the Holy Prophet ﷺ passed away.
And it's the 7th century.
7th century,
yeah.
mid-7th century.
Yeah.
Using radiocarbon dating, which is not just relying on Islamic methods, but it's relying on modern Western historical methods. And that research has been done, and it's not been able to, nobody in the Western world has rejected that. One of the things they talked about was that there's been a different, there were some arguments regarding typography and calligraphy and so on, but that has also been largely cleared up by academics, that's saying that the Arabic scripts, the early Arabic script of the Quran and the Arabic script as we know it today has evolved over time. But that does not take away from the argument that the Quran is, in terms of all of its wording, the same Quran that we have today. So using carbon dating, paleography is another system which is used in the study of old manuscripts and ancient manuscripts and papyri and so on. The Quran Majid has been dated to the 7th century. So using non-classical Islamic methods of knowing that the Quran existed, we have these methods. But the greatest way that we know that the Quran Majid exists today, in its form it does through logical evidence, is through tawatur. Which means that the Quran Majid has been narrated by so many people in every single generation that it would be impossible for all of them to collude together and make this document up. It's absolutely impossible from a historical point of view. Let's say the very early tensions between different Islamic sects, like you had the Shiites, the Khawarij, and you have the traditional Ahlul Sunnah. I mean, if the Quran Majid, if they wanted to make it up, all of these people who were arguing together, they could each have made their own Quran Majid up and said the Quran says this to favor their own arguments, their own theological standpoints, their own political motivations. Islamic rulers, the most corrupt ones, could have done this thing. But despite all this sectarianism that existed, all this political and violent conflict that happened in early Islam, the Quran Majid is the same text among all of these different sectarian groups. So from a logical point of view, even that's an answer to respond to the fact that the Quran Majid is one and it's the same. And this point of tawatur, that such a large number of people narrated the Quran in different generations, that it was impossible for them all to collude on a lie. That is the basis of the Quran which we have, and pretty much the whole system of yaqeen that we have in Islam as well.
Okay, Majid, there's further points. I'm just going back to Tom Holland's statement. He says it's also wrong it also wrongly been suggested that we said there is no historical evidence for the 7th century origins of Islam. What I actually said in the film was that I had expected to find contemporary Muslim evidence, but there's nothing else. On the Quran aside, the first mention of the Prophet Muhammad's name in Arabic is on the coin that we featured in part 5, and on the Dome of the Rock, which we also featured prominently. The evidence provided by Christian contemporaries was mentioned in part 3 and is dealt with at great length in the book. He says, obviously in a film of 74 minutes, which opens up very rich and complex arguments and brings to light detailed academic scholarship, which has been going on for over 40 years, it is impossible to articulate all the resonance implications of every argument. Much more detail with a full citation of sources will be found in his book. All the film can hope to do is introduce the fascinating, but until now largely academic debate with careful contextualization to a larger television audience. The subject, it said, should be said, is advancing and challenging all the times as new discoveries are made and new insights. Again, that is precisely what makes it such a fascinating area of research and an entirely valid topic for a documentary.
Yeah, that's not different to what Orientalists have said inside the past about why they are presenting arguments about Islam, why they're even studying Islam in the first place, spending decades, 20 years, 30 years, half of their lives designing arguments, as I mentioned earlier on, to really put or shake a Muslim's belief in terms of the rules, the ahkam, even the belief inside Islam, that look, even if this is valid in itself. So,
I mean, I've just got one quote here, Shafiq, from a prominent historian.
Let me just take a call from Birmingham. Zay is from Birmingham. Hello, Zay. Are you there, Zay?
Hello.
Hello, Zay.
All right.
If you just turn your TV volume off, please, if you can.
Oh, yeah, I'll turn it down.
Thank you very much. What would you like to say, Zay? You're very warm welcome.
Yeah, same to you. I'd just like to ask, obviously, it's like, this is a Western country, so how, there's Muslims been nearly rioting because of a programme, so is this what's going to happen every time there's any kind of critique of Islam? Even a moderate one, which Untold story were quite moderate, is there potentially going to be riots every time it happens?
Okay, stay on the line, Zay. Mufti, I'll just speak to Zay.
I mean, we shouldn't. Hello, by the way. We shouldn't. I mean, nobody's writing about this. My issue with the program is not that they've made a program regarding Islamic history. My issue with the program is that it's based on dubious historical grounds, and even from the perspective from the worldwide academic community, the theories that were presented in the program have been largely rejected. So on that basis, I was questioning the motivation behind Channel 4 to show a program which has been largely dismissed by academics across the world. What the program could have did was, it could have talked about those particular that particular theory, but it could have also represented the other side properly, which it failed to do. I mean, there was so much selective editing going on in there. Let me just give you one quote by a Western. Remember, talking from a Western perspective here. I've not given any Islamic sources so far in this program. They've all been Western and deliberately so. Let me just give you one quote by a prominent historian called Stephen Humphreys, who wrote Islamic history, a Western scholar. He says, unsurprisingly, the Kroner-Cook interpretation has failed to win general acceptance among Western Orientalists, let alone Muslim scholars. The rhetoric of these authors may be an obstacle for many readers, for their argument is conveyed through a dizzying and unrelenting array of illusions, metaphors, and analogies. More substantively, their use or abuse, he says, of the Greek and Syriac sources has been sharply criticised. In the end, perhaps we ought to use Hagarism, which is the basic theories behind it, more as a what-if exercise than as a research monograph. So that's what Western academics and Western historians are saying. I mean, Tom Holland doesn't probably really pass off as an academic historian of Islam, to be honest, because I very, very much doubt, from what I've read of his biography, that he can even read Arabic sources. I mean, Kroner and Cook are people that do read Arabic sources and Greek, Syriac sources and whatsoever. But I think Tom Holland's more of a casual historian who takes an interest.
Zay, do you want to come back in there?
Yep. Well, I'm not. It looks like to me. It just looks like any criticism of Islam. Like for instance, every day we criticise Christianity. Like for instance, Father Ted. That's really taking the mick out of Christianity, etc. But there's no problem by Christians, etc. from them types of programs. So there's just there's a big difference. Like from our seat, any kind of criticism of Islam, like for instance the Citizen Khan comedy. Look at what that's look at all threats what that's brought up recently. It's like that same kind of thing.
You see, we don't have a problem with discussing and debating these issues, and I mean, Ummah Channel has done a great job here of organising this programme. And any other such issues that we have, we're willing to debate them on purely academic on purely academic grounds, like this one, like we are doing. I mean, it's a discussion, it's a debate. You've had the chance to call in, and we're responding to you in a pleasant manner without rioting, taking your points on board, and responding to you in, with the standards of knowledge that we all expect to see. So even on this program, we are responding on an intellectual academic level, on a scholarly level. That's what we're trying to do. And I will just say one point is that there are certain issues that Muslims are sensitive about in regards to their religion. And you'll find all religions have a similar kind of sensibilities and sensitivities. Our job here on this program, and as people of knowledge or students of knowledge, let's say, is to respond to these in a scholarly fashion. Now, yes, we do find certain things sensitive. For example, the Jewish community finds discussion regarding the Holocaust or Holocaust denial or reducing the numbers as very, very sensitive. In fact, it's a punishable crime in the West to deny the Holocaust or to reduce the numbers. Let me just give you one example whilst you're on the line there, if that's okay, Shafiq.
Yeah.
This same method that has been used in this program, this historical revisionism, where we are not allowed to base the history of a people upon their own narrative. I mean, it's considered unreliable or untrustworthy or not objective enough. If you apply that same method to the Holocaust, it's actually a crime. There was a historian called David Irving. I mean, we might disagree with him. That's another point. We're talking about methodology and interpretive framework here. His name was David Irving, and he denied the Holocaust, denying the numbers of the Holocaust. Historians such as him, many of them don't deny the Holocaust, but they are dubious regard. They criticize the numbers that are given. So they say that the numbers have been overestimated. I mean, a court in Austria found him guilty, and he was imprisoned for 3 years because of his findings, because of the approach that he took. I mean, he took the same approach that these historians took towards Islamic history, that Islam did not even exist. I mean, that's what basically that they were saying, that in the 7th century there was no Islam. The same approach when it's taken to Judaism and the Holocaust, in Europe it's regarded as a crime. All we're asking is, at least let us have a level playing field here. Have one standard for, say, Jewish history, Christian history, and Islamic history, or other events in history. Why is it that Muslim and Islamic history have been singled out to use this peculiar type of historical methodology that has not only been disregarded by Muslim scholars, let me say, but most of the Western academic world?
Thank you very much for your calls there.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Take care. Nice to hear from you. As always, Ummah Channel provides a platform for our viewers and people from all backgrounds. No matter what your faith, you're always welcome to call our show and participate in our debates. That's what makes Debate Night one of the best TV shows here in Europe. Thank you. It's time for a quick break, and we'll come back and we'll carry on the debate and try to bring some closure to it. Join us after a break. Assalamu alaikum, welcome back to Debate Night with me, your host Mohammed Shafiq. We are discussing the Channel 4 programme, Islam, the Untold Story. And we just realised we're coming towards the end of the show and we've not even got through a quarter probably of what we wanted to get through. So I'm sure we'll come back with this. Like I said, inshallah, in the next few weeks, Ummah Channel will bring you a 3-part series, Islam, the Told Story. We'll bring Ummah Channel. I hope Mufti Sahib will be able to come back for that one evening. And look at that in a bit more detail. Let's go to some of your Facebook comments. Waqas is from London. He says, I like your programme. Thank you very much, brother. He said, what are Channel 4's target audience? Can you shed any light on that, Majid?
I have no idea about that. It's primetime television, definitely, when it was broadcast. I'm sure Channel 4 have got this appeal in terms of trying to, as was mentioned in terms of Tom Holland's own responses, we're trying to reach a broader audience, we're trying to give critiques on various aspects of religions and other philosophies that are out there, and not only just to look at Islam. So I'm sure they've got like a very general audience who are targeting them.
Okay. Amir Hussain says, you are all doing a great job. What is Mufti Saab's name, by the way? His name is Mufti Mustafa Baig, and I apologise for his name to be spelt wrong. I understand it says Babe. I think you are a babe, Mufti Saab, in a nice way, a nice possibly way. So we apologise for that. And please could you ask, what would Mufti Saab advise regarding how to reply to programmes like what Channel 4 showed? what should we study, Jazakallah, what should we study to be able to respond to this in a responsible way?
I think that's a very good question. The first thing is that we shouldn't get emotional about these things and get very angry about them, especially when you're responding to non-Muslims. You have to respond to these people on their own grounds, on their own terms. And that's what we've been trying to do on this program today, me, Majid and Brother Shafiq, is to talk to them based on scholarly Western standards of establishing and proving your argument. So that's the first thing I think that we should do. And when you complain to such programs, I think the best way to complain is to talk about the dubious historical grounds on which the program was based on, because he was saying that it's from a historical perspective. So based on his own claim, we should respond to the program. And secondly, I would advise that you should not really be concerning yourself, the average lay people should not be concerning yourself with this literature in too much depth. The best thing what you should do, first of all, is approach the ulama, the local scholars in your area, and learn and take from them. If you don't have the time to go full time, see if they'll give you some time during the week. If not, then read books, Islamic books, which talk about Islamic history, for example, which talk about the Quran, which talk about the Hadith. And if you are particularly interested, then read the responses of Muslim scholars against such arguments. Muslim scholars have been making them very early on, from Orientalism first began with Napoleon invading Egypt in 1798. Orientalism is actually older than that, but the significant writing takes place after that. There are significant responses by Muslim scholars and some non-Muslim scholars which you can really read if you are interested. The arguments in this program are probably not worthy of going into in such great depth, to be honest, for you to be too concerned about. I was not really concerned when I heard about I didn't even watch it, to be honest, but I knew the theory behind it. It was only when Brother Shafiq approached me that I thought I should watch the program, and then I watched it, and most of it was predictable in terms of what I already knew about these theories that have been rejected throughout the academic world.
Okay. Waqas is saying, he's clarified his question. Thank you, Waqas. He says what he means is what is the purpose of making a documentary when their research is false, and obviously is questionable. Obviously, that's what Muslims are saying.
Yeah, I think some of the points we've already discussed in today's program. What purpose does it serve? Does it add to historical inquiry? Does it add to intellectual discourse upon the topic? None, actually, from our point of view. And obviously, I think Mufti Sahib has done a great job in terms of dissecting the arguments that have been presented so far and giving counter-arguments based upon, as you mentioned, Western standards to shed some light upon this topic. So really, there is no objective reporting, or was any real sense of purpose of this program. I think it may have been the case, as another caller mentioned, that maybe just some people just want to present documentaries for the sake of documentaries and pass them off as being, academic, being historians, and maybe this leads to further career opportunities. Allahu alim, Allah knows best.
No other religious tradition has this internal critical inquiry that Muslims have through the process of jarh and ta'deel, of verifying reporters. The laws of impugnment and justification that we have in Islam.
I'm just very conscious because we're coming towards the end of the show, and I just wanted to say, if anybody, we've got, I think, time for maybe a couple of quick, brief calls. So if anybody does want to get in their final comments, 01254 277 370. Mufti Sahib, there's one very important thing that I think we've missed, for our viewers' sake, is the hadith, the matan.
Yes.
Can you just go very briefly? I know because we're really short time, but just because the argument is that this is verbal.
Some of them have even called it Chinese whispers.
Whispers that have kept. Can you just give us how is hadith based on?
Okay. First of all, hadith actually were written down in the time of the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. It's just that only very few companions, such as Abdullah ibn Amr al-As, was given permission, because the Prophet ﷺ feared that they might mix the Quran and the Hadith together. So only very few companions were given permission, based on their extraordinary memory and their intellect, that they could distinguish between the two types of revelation, we can call it that. But otherwise, most of the traditions that we have were passed down orally. And that's what I was talking about just before your question. It links into the question that you've made, is that we have a system of isnad. So basically, the Prophet ﷺ said something. This was heard by a companion or a number of companions. then they told that on to somebody else. It could have been their son, their student, or somebody else that they knew. Then they passed it on until it got written down. Now, although Imam Bukhari died in 256, hadiths were written down much earlier than this. We have Malik's Muwatta, for example. We have traditions much earlier than this, when hadith were actually written down. The process is that from when the Holy Prophet ﷺ said this particular thing, or it was reported that he did such a thing, to the time that the hadith was written down, we have to have a chain of reporters that connects the writing down of the tradition to the Prophet ﷺ saying this or acting or carrying out a certain act. Then each one of those narrators, each one of the persons in that chain of transmitters will be scrutinized to every extent possible. I mean, we've got a great tradition of internal criticism.
This is Isnad, is it?
This is the Isnad system. Yeah, this is the Isnad system that is unique to Islam. So like I was saying earlier, not only do we have a vast amount of information about the Holy Prophet ﷺ in terms of everything that he said and that he did, we also have vast amounts of information regarding the sources through which we know that information. It's extraordinary. We have huge voluminous books in this respect. And if the person's memory was not very good, for example, or if he was not known to be trustworthy, on that basis we reject these traditions. Now, this is the linear fashion of narrating hadith traditions. At the same time, we also have other ways in which the hadith traditions reach us, not only through singular reports, but also through mass transmission, what we call tawatur. And that is that so many people in every single generation report tradition. This has to be in every single generation, that all of those people together could not collude and falsify a report about the Prophet ﷺ. This oral tradition is very strong in Islam, and the oral tradition precedes the written tradition. So even if, for example, on the Quran, let's say, that they say, oh, we found a version of the Quran which is different to another version of the Quran. What we say in response to that, I mean, although there isn't, I mean, there's something interesting I read was that in Germany, just before World War II, 42,000 Quran manuscripts were collected, and this is reported by the eminent Professor Dr. Muhammad Hamidullah. And he says 42,000 scripts of the Quran Majid were collected, and not one of them differed from the other one, except in terms of calligraphy and typography. So, but regardless of that fact, our oral tradition of the Quran precedes the written tradition as well. And the same goes with the hadith, that there were so many people who had memorized so many different hadiths that we had accurate reporting about the Prophet ﷺ, not from one source, but from multiple sources, multiple geographic locations, multiple teachers, multiple institutions and madrasas that were formed to collect the reports of the Prophet ﷺ.
So that in a nutshell is how the hadiths are collated. So I wanted to, Majid Sahab, I mean, what now? I mean, for our viewers who are obviously still very upset by this program, what can they do?
Yeah,
you blog about this. You've been quite active, haven't you, on reacting?
Yeah,
to
I mean,
this?
whilst the program was, while I was watching, I was tweeting there straight away.
As we all were, yeah.
Yeah, just to kind of like give some sort of insight into what we felt at the time, how the program was depicting Islam and the way the program was rolling out. So that's important to do there. So when these events happen, we need to have some sort of position on these straight away. A lot of people, it ends up casting doubt in their minds. The Mufti Sahib has mentioned that, you know, sometimes it's not necessary for people to go into such detail. But then again, Islam is based upon addressing the intellect. Islam is based upon stimulating of the thinking and making people appreciate the miraculous nature of the Quran, the way in which Islam came into being, whom Islam came through, the existence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. These are things which we as Muslims, we need to approach Islam in a very intellectual way and adopt thoughts in a very intellectual way as well, such that we are able to understand them and are able then to defend them when it comes to presenting Islam to non-Muslims, to other Muslims who are trying to learn about Islam as well. So that's very important from my point of view. So secondly, we need to use opportunities like these to, you know, chat to people. So this program comes on primetime television, on a major television network. People are watching it. You know, millions of people might watch that program. People will probably picked up on the internet as well. use that opportunity now to discuss with non-Muslims about, okay, did you watch the program? What did you think about that? And today's debate night program would have given a lot of people some ideas in terms of how to discuss this topic and start proving in terms of the validity of even Islam, and for people start looking into Islam in a bit more of a serious way.
Okay, thank you very much. Abdul is from Birmingham. He says he's really enjoyed the program and it's very authoritative and he's learned so much from it, as have so many of you who've been messaging Ummah Channel through the email debatenight@ummahchannel.tv. If you want to get in touch with the show when we're not on air, it's debatenight@ummahchannel.tv. A lot of people say they've really found tonight useful. I'm really glad that we put it together. Mufti said there's so many things. I mean, I know you were well prepared as well. There's so many things that we want to get into. Obviously, we've run out of time. But it's the point which your brother, I think, Wasim was asking. Okay. Let's take one more call and then we'll finish the closing remarks. Let's go to Halifax and talk to Hasnain. Hasnain, Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. I'm very happy, mashallah, that your answers are very good. And alhamdulillah.
Well, Mufti Saab's and Majid's answers are very good. I'm just asking the questions.
Work on this. We have to expect this sort of situation from these enemies of Islam. They're out there to make name for themselves. Simple, people who have no name go ahead and then challenge the validity of Islam for only one reason, and that is just to, make opposition against the Muslims themselves, because they know that the Muslims are going to answer us. They know that. If Islam wasn't the religion that was produced by the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam that came from Arabia, the first people that would have rejected it would have been the popes, the leader of the Christianity, the leader of Judaism. Those people, those leaders, never challenged the existence of the Holy Prophet. They never have stated that the Quran came from somewhere else. But these are the same people who didn't know the name of the Holy Prophet, Muhammad Mustafa sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and they thought that the Muslims were some sort of demons, and they were coming from Arabia, and they were possessed. They couldn't understand about Islam. The reason mostly, importantly, was because they knew that this is the religion, this is the Prophet, foretold in Deuteronomy 18:18 by Moses himself.
Okay,
and then
thank
later on
you
Jesus said
very
that after
much.
me...
I'm very sorry, Hasnain Shah Sahab, I'm very, very sorry. We've reached the end of our show, so obviously we have to finish there. Thank you for your call. G. Mufti Sahab, final comments?
Yeah, I was just going to say, there's not too much to worry about in this program, but people should be learning about their own history. Muslims should be... there were many technical errors in it. For example, I was watching the part when he's talking about Sayyidina Umar and Jerusalem coming into the hands of Muslims. What actually happened when Sayyidina Umar entered Jerusalem was that he was invited even to pray at the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, the most holy site in Christianity. But Sayyidina Umar himself refused to pray at the church, fearing that Muslims afterwards would convert it into a mosque. So instead he prayed just a few yards away from there, and that's where he prayed his salah. And now that today, you can still see it standing, is Masjid Umar. And at the time when Jerusalem came into the hand of Muslims, he was talking about the lack of documents and history that we have. Sayyidina Umar, along with the Jews at the time, including people like Sophronius, who was in Jerusalem, made this pact called the Pact of Umar, or the Covenant of Umar, in which it talks about the rights of Jews and Christians in Jerusalem, and also the role that Muslims will play in there as a governing body. So many things like this in the program show that he was quite illiterate regarding basic Islamic historical facts. Okay. And that's one of the things that I would exhort our Muslim viewers on here to do, is to learn about your own history and learn about your own deen before responding to such programs. And if this preparation had been done in the first place, then you would not have been so concerned about the content of the program.
Okay. Mufti Sahab, thank you so much for joining us tonight. Thank you, Majid. We, as promised, inshallah, will bring you a three-part series here on Ummah Channel. Islam, the told story, that will happen, inshallah, in the next few weeks. Just to go in, because obviously in a debate night show like this, we don't obviously have, because it's very fast-paced moving, we don't get the chance to go into a bit more detail. But inshallah, in those shows, we'll get scholars, Ummah Channel scholars, and guests here, and hopefully have some academics here as well as Mufti Sahib here tonight, to explore this and talk about the program in a bit more detail. Thank you so much for your calls, your text message, your Facebook message. I apologize if we haven't been able to get through. See you same time next week. Assalamu alaikum.